Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for the opportunity of being here today. And thanks for the presentation. And we will talk about cognitive reserve and its association with the cognitive and mood functioning in adulthood and older age. So it is now well documented that different compensating factors can counteract or delay the cognitive decline linked to typical aging, but also to pathological aging processes. And among them, there is cognitive reserve, a dynamic and active process whereby differential recruitment of cognitive resources or strategies or neural networks underlying task performance allows individual to cope better with brain damage and so maintain an efficient cognitive performance. We also know that cognitive reserve cannot be measured directly, and it is usually assessed with proxies based on indicators of lifestyle behaviors and activities that, if adopted, serve to protect or augment it. Commonly used proxies of cognitive reserve are, for example, educational level, occupational attainment, engagement in intellectually stimulating leisure activities. These factors are thought to create an enriched environment that, let's say, give resilience to our brain and lower the risk for developing dementia or can counteract age-related worsening in cognitive abilities and everyday functioning. Usually, these proxies are examined in isolation, and the most important proxy is educational level. However, examining a single proxy of cognitive reserve does not allow to capture the multidimensional nature of this construct. So several multidimensional cognitive reserve surveys has been developed, including various lifestyle indicators. However, they usually provide a global score of cognitive reserve. Only few of them account also for the dynamic nature of cognitive reserve, assessing its proxies at different life stages, and none of them considered the structure of cognitive reserve and its proxies within and across different life stages. Moreover, there is now increasing evidence of other factors that could be protective for the cognitive and mood functioning in adulthood and older age, such as family engagement and partnership quality and the engagement in religious spiritual activities, factors that are not accounted in the extant survey that assess cognitive reserve. So in order to overcome these gaps in the literature, we developed a new survey, the Current and Retrospective Cognitive Reserve Survey, aimed at assessing and capturing cognitive reserve as a multidimensional and dynamic construct. In particular, this survey allowed to measure different classical and novel dimensions of or proxies of cognitive reserve with respect to the current status of the individual at the time of assessment, but also with respect to earlier lifestyle activities as recalled from younger adulthood. And a pilot study showed that the structure of cognitive reserve captured by this new survey reflect a three-level factor structure with the two global factor at the third level, so the current and retrospective one, the dimensional factors at the middle level, and the observed item at the first level, which loaded differently in different dimensional cognitive reserve factors depending on the life stage considered, as you can see in the slide. So the aim of the study was to confirm the cognitive reserve structure captured by this new survey using confirmatory factor models, but also estimate the association between global and dimensional cognitive reserve factors, not only with the cognitive functioning, but also and newly with the mood functioning, another aspect that has been really rarely examined in this literature. In all, we enrolled 235 adults and older adults with an age range between 55 and 90 years old from various Italian cities, and they were all healthy individuals, so without cognitive impairment or depressive symptoms. All participants attended one individual session with an experimenter lasting about 90 minutes and completed alongside the cognitive reserve survey also measures of general cognitive functioning, crystallized intelligence, reasoning or fluid intelligence, a working memory measure, and a mood measure. Results from confirmatory factor analysis confirmed the three-level representation of cognitive reserve of this survey, with the two global cognitive reserve factors, the current and retrospective one at the third level, the dimensional cognitive reserve factors at the second level, and at the first level, the observed item. The loading strengths of the dimensional cognitive reserve factors were consistent across the two global factors, with leisure activities and social engagement most strongly representative of these two global factors. Family engagement loaded strongly onto the current factor, the current global factor, whereas the two factors related to the engagement in religious activity were only weakly associated with both current and retrospective cognitive reserve factors. Results also confirmed the qualitative asymmetries in the observed items between some of the retrospective and current dimensional factors of cognitive reserve, which are actually which are reflecting also the changes in terms of aims, opportunities, and so on that are related to increasing age. Concerning the association between the cognitive reserve factors and the cognitive and mood outcomes, we found a differential association between cognitive reserve and the cognitive and mood outcomes considered here. In particular, in line with the literature, we found association between cognitive reserve and fluid and crystallized intelligence, more pronounced for the retrospective global factor, plus possibly because these cognitive domains are already affected and influenced by the educational and occupational attainment earlier in life. We also found association between cognitive reserve and working memory, here more pronounced for the current global factor, possibly because changes in such a core cognitive mechanism become important and evident in later adulthood. And as expected, we also found negative associations between the two global factors and mood functioning, more pronounced for the current global factor. Interestingly, we find negligible association between cognitive reserve and a measure of general cognitive functioning, maybe because we included only healthy individuals, and this kind of measure are more sensitive when we are facing more frailty individuals. We also found differential associations between all the cognitive and mood measures of interest and the different dimensional factors of cognitive reserve or proxies of cognitive reserves that we measure with our survey. And in line with the literature, we can confirm that the social economic status and the engagement in leisure and social activities represents a protective factor for both the cognitive and mood functioning in adulthood and older age. Interestingly, as for the novel dimension that we measure with our survey, the engagement in religious activity resulted unrelated or weakly related with a negative association with the cognitive and mood functioning. And this is possibly due to cultural characteristics of our sample, or due to the fact that maybe these aspects are more related to other individual characteristics rather than the more general cognitive and mood functioning as depicted by our survey. But obviously, this aspect needs to be further examined in future studies. Most importantly, we found the family engagement to be positively associated with the cognitive functioning measure, but strongly associated with the mood measure, where lower depressive symptoms are associated with a higher engagement with meaningful relations and having a higher partnership quality. And this result further confirmed the importance of involving and engaging meaningful social relation in order to support our emotional well-being while we are aging. So, to sum up, our results underscore the importance of evaluating cognitive reserve as a multidimensional and dynamic construct, considering not only the current status of the individual, but also earlier life activities. This could give us, in fact, differential and complementary information regarding the association between cognitive reserve proxies and performance in core cognitive processes, but also the association with mood functioning, so with more psychological outcomes, an aspect that is really interesting and important to be further explored. Most importantly, our results further highlight how family engagement seems to be a salient dimension of cognitive reserve, with a protective role not only for the cognitive functioning but also for mental health. So a lifestyle indicator that maybe needs to be enhanced, supported, and incentivized in adulthood and older age, in order to promote an healthy and active aging. So, to conclude, this survey represents a new reliable tool to be used for experimental and clinical purposes, not only for the assessment of cognitive reserve proxies within a multidimensional life stage-dependent framework, but also to further analyze the differential associations between cognitive reserve proxies and several cognitive and psychological outcomes in adulthood and older age. And it could be also important in order to understand which solutions and which lifestyle indicators are important to be promoted and incentivized depending of the life stages considered. Thank you for all the colleagues that collaborated in this study, and you for your attention.